Welcome to Movie Umpers. My name is Bob Sham.
I am Angela.
And the sounds of your may be dogs. We like to talk about movies around here. Yes, movies. We're not doing shit like top 10 characters from Marvel Phase 4. We're not doing stuff like that.
No.
We'd probably get a lot more viewers if we did. Probably have more subscribers instead of the humble, consistent pace in which we're getting subscribers now.
Though we might be like a little depressed if
That's true.
we're trying to do that pop culture bullshit
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, we're
on purpose.
Well, we do pop culture bullshit.
Well, but
it's
like
just from
things
all
we don't-
throughout time.
But like things we don't, if we were doing things we don't want to do just to get likes is what I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, we will be watching movies we may not want to watch sometimes. But,
No, sure.
But yeah.
But like clickbait. We're not clickbait.
This month's, I wouldn't even know how to be that. My life is centered around not making money. That's what I'm really good at. And like, there are not even to get into the weeds of things, there are times where there's situations where I'm handed checks and I just hand them to someone else. Like I can't even claim it's like a moral. I mean, it's hard to say, but I guess I'm just not driven. But I'm also fortunate because someone in this house makes money. But anyway, the theme this month is Portraits of the Artist, in which we analyze two particular and very different black leading men in film from both ends of film history. And I named the theme after this Criterion collection of the Paul Robeson portraits of the artist.
That handsome man.
This handsome fellow, a big time, maybe one of the biggest actors, especially black actors of his day. A labor organizer, made a lot in England.
England?
You know, the country of England.
England?
But that's what inspired the choice, the naming of this theme that we're doing this month. I mean, mostly it's Denzel month, but Mondays we're talking about Paul Robeson. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about the movie Jericho from 1937. It's an English film.
England?
And this is following another English film that Robeson did called Sanders of the River. Mm-hmm. Now, in this movie, we can't discuss we're only allotting like, four or five Robeson titles, because mostly it's Denzel month. Mm-hmm. But Sanders of the River, one we're not going to, is one in which Sanders is portraying a specific African tribesman. And he worked, as from what I read, he worked very hard, as we know Paul Robeson would, to represent a figure from, Africa in a positive and accurate way.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Robeson felt pretty good about it until he saw the movie in post-edit. And apparently the movie was edited around by the British production company. And he was very disappointed that the end piece of the movie ended up being more towards like the benefits of British colonialism as opposed to, the nobility of black African history. So they kind of grifted him a little bit and changed the outward meaning purpose. So Robeson felt kind of burned,
Yeah.
And yeah, he had to go to England to maybe go to a place like Switzerland and England to maybe make more of the movies he wanted, but England was just like our dad in terms of imperialism, our mother, right?
Yeah.
It's like when I was
Taught us what we know.
It's like when I was a little kid, and the first major city outside of the South I went to was Chicago, and I expected like people to not be racist in Chicago, and then literally got off the plane and encountered people being racist. And of course, if you know anything about Chicago, how laughable it would be to expect there not to be racism in Chicago. But I was a little kid.
I get it.
And, Paul Robeson is definitely smarter than I was flying into Chicago as an 8-year-old little boy. But I guess it is, there's always like something pushing you back if you're trying to represent blackness, even in the European world where they may seem a little softer on certain things.
Yeah.
And of course, Europe is also England's about to go into war. So at this time anyway. So he made Jericho.
If you haven't heard of Jericho, it might be because it also is called Dark Sands.
In the U.S., it was released a year later, called Dark Sands. If you look up the Jericho 1937 film Wikipedia, you'll see the Dark Sands poster, and it looks like there's not a black man on that cover. It's got Paul Robeson's name on it. But that was kind of... That practice existed.
That's fucked.
That practice existed in Western media, American media, up to the 60s. I remember I worked in a used media store, and you would see, like, the hot sounds of jazz, and where it's all black artists, and then the cover's like a white woman biting on pearls or something. Like,
gross.
That shit was very common, and so, but there is a Dark Sands poster, I think, that does show Paul Robeson's face, but it's funny, the one you see on the wiki, it makes everyone just look white.
I couldn't find a poster of this that represented this movie. Even the one that I found with him in it, it's like him and a woman from the movie, but they're just looking to the side expectantly, like, I don't know.
Now,
weird.
This movie, not very well known. You have to be kind of a movie nerd or into black film history to know this. We understand this with Paul Robeson. These are deep cut movies, but that's just kind of, but you know, we're not film experts, but we're putting ourselves in a process of education here.
Yes.
We are film fans, film enthusiasts. We want to know more. We love certain movies we grew up with, but we're not like people that want to just sit in our comfort food over and over and over and over again. We want to learn something. We want to figure things out. We want to become someday experts in discussing movies and being well-rounded with it.
Yeah, and it's not just about, like, what's the new thing.
Yeah.
It's important to go back and see kind of where all this came from.
And Jericho is such an interesting movie to me. Like, it's got its flaws. I won't say it's like a masterpiece, but there is something about it that is, like, I feel like deserves a lot more attention. Mm-hmm. And
I agree.
For one, in the wake of Sanders of the River, Paul Robeson was like, nah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to look, I'm the lead. I'm going to make sure things, and he even changed the ending in terms of how certain things represented. But Jericho, it's a British film, and we get a black, it's in World War I, and an American troop, and with a black regiment. They're all going into, I forget what country they're going into. They're going to fight Germans or whatever, somewhere. It wasn't just Germany. But that's when we meet Paul Robeson as he's calming his fellow troops with his song.
They're on a boat which could explode. I guess they're carrying, I don't know if they're carrying, I actually couldn't catch it, whether they're carrying like gunpowder or whatever. TNT, I have no idea. But there is a part where all the high-ranking officers are white men, and one of those high-ranking white men starts to light a cigarette, and the other one is like, what the fuck are you doing? You're going to blow us up. So some of these men are scared that something's going to happen on this boat and that they're going to die before they even get to war. Like, war is scary enough, but they're like, our transportation to war could also kill us.
Well, a whole fucking generation got chewed up in that war.
Yes,
and
yes.
so, and honestly, that one guy that was real, like, fucking scared out of his mind.
Makes sense.
Why wouldn't you be, truly? It seems
know.
like a normal reaction, but it's kind of sweet how Paul Robeson...
But as you go, your strength will grow, and in the end you'll live. My way leads to rosy dawnings, my way leads to golden acres, lonely road with a heavy load.
You know, we want heroes this particular week. We need heroes this week. Yes. We've seen a couple of Paul Robeson playing bad guys, Denzel being very much gray area, being gangsters. We want heroes this week. So, and we got it here in Jericho.
Yeah, we did.
And so it's really sweet when Paul Robeson's like soothing his fellow troops. The commanding officer, played by Henry Wilcoxon, he's one of the good whites. It's really...
I know.
It's really funny though, because these are all supposed to be American troops. At first I thought these were like a Black American troop regiment that's kind of like just kind of in with some British troops, but no, they're all supposed to be American. And some of these actors don't bother to change from their English accents.
They do not. So that was a little confusing.
But honestly, think about how remember that, what was that sniper movie with Jude Law in it? Where all the Russians sounded like German and on all the...
I know what you're talking about.
Or like everyone just had an English accent, even though they were like... Anyway, it was like goofy. But so it's not like that's not unusual that we just inject familiar accents into people that wouldn't have them. But some shit goes down and the torpedo hits this ship. And things start going haywire. And these guys... and a lot of the troops get trapped in this area. And these two guys, and Paul Robeson and another guy... are trying to get the door open to get them out so they don't drown. And meanwhile, a British commanding... he's not British. He's supposed to be American. He commands one of their commanding officers to get everyone around them up and get them top deck. Some guy comes up, and he sees that they're trying to open this door, and he's like, no, we gotta go. We gotta go.
And Paul Robeson's like, we cannot leave these people.
Like 8 people will die if you don't open this door. And then he pulls a gun on him. He's like, orders an order. Paul Robeson basically pops him one, and he hits his head, and he goes down, but they manage to free it, so all those people are saved.
He's so strong that he lifts the metal in front of the door.
But he tries to help the commanding officer that pulled a gun on him, but he's dead. He hit his head, and it brained him. So they sit before their little military court, and they're very casual about it. It seemed like no one was really expecting anything bad to happen.
Yeah, I think they thought, because they didn't consider what he had done to be out of malice. He was trying to save people.
And Will Coxon's character, Captain Mac,
yes,
he was speaking on behalf. He's like, oh, he's a hero. He's very good for
They've known each other since before the war.
Yeah, but the head officer or whatever is like, when he gets him to admit that he decked his commanding officer, the head officer is like, well, you broke 2 rules here, so now you're going to get imprisoned, and we'll try you. I think it's like Christmas time.
It is, and the troops are doing a show for each other, and so we get some tap dancing and some singing from other people, and then they're going to take some of the prisoners to go watch the rest of the show. And the Officer Mac is visiting Robeson, and he basically, they're not going to let Robeson go because of what he's in trouble for. And Mac says, let him go, because he wants to just go sing with the boys one more time.
I'll take responsibility for him.
I'll take responsibility.
His name is Jericho Jackson, by the way. That's his character's name. That's why it's called Jericho.
Yes.
And but as they're singing, they go. He goes through a song, and then he notices that people are kind of relaxed, and he sees that there's a gun.
Mm-hmm. Like a man's 3 feet from him with a gun.
And sure enough, he grabs that gun, and he forces his way out, and he manages to make his escape off the ship.
And he knows French, so he pretends to be a Frenchman, and he walks straight up and talks to officers.
It makes sense that, they are around France there, so it makes sense because it's implied that when he escapes and he meets his little AWOL American buddy, who's played by Walter Fuller, and I'll get into him. He's a very interesting guy.
I want to know, because I didn't have time to look him up, but yeah, he basically sneaks onto a boat that he thinks he finds a drunk man on the deck, and so he puts that drunk man into his little boat that he had gotten out to this bigger boat, and so he takes off. And he thinks he's alone, but then this man crawls out from under the next morning and is like, where's my buddy? And very quickly just went, all right, we'll be friends. It was just very quick.
I think this guy just went AWOL. I think he was a soldier.
Yeah, he was also
nah,
trying to get out. Yeah, he didn't want anybody to catch him either. They were like fugitives on the run.
You sure found something that looks like a desert anyway. Give me the Riviera.
Come on, let's get going.
Where to?
Oh, they're just walking till we find a town or a camp or something.
Or nothing. Boy, you sure got what it takes to travel, and that's no sense at all.
Pretty lucky to find his first aid kit on board.
Yeah, we'll need it, too.
So it makes sense that they're in France because it implies that they're up in, northwest Africa somewhere.
They want to go to the desert. Paul wants to go to the desert.
Yeah, and that's where they end up. But this character of I said Walter Fuller. That's the producer of the movie.
Oh.
The actor's name is Wallace Ford.
Wallace Ford.
Now, Wallace Ford is an interesting guy. Apparently, that's not his real name, for one. He's an English-born, naturalized American. He's a vaudevillain guy. His name is Samuel Grundy Jones. Now, apparently, Samuel's upbringing was one of... He was like a delinquent.
Okay.
And then he came up and got into performance vaudeville. But there was one occasion where Samuel was hopping trains with an old friend of his. And that friend's name was Wallace Ford.
Oh.
And Wallace Ford fell off the tracks, fell in between some cars or something, and got killed, died while they were jumping trains.
God.
This is when he was, a ne'er-do-well, just bouncing around all over the place. When he went to, become a performer, he took his dead friend's name as his performing name. Mm-hmm. And Wallace Ford has actually played, a lot of characters similar to this, where like the very snappy kind of guy. And I actually kind of, in a modern context, I kind of, if I see like a comedic side bit character with someone, I might be a little more judgmental of it. Because it just seemed like, in the 80s and 90s, there seemed like
it's just always.
We were lousy with them. So I guess in our age group, it's just like, we don't need any more of that. But there was something refreshing about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to think of any instance in which a black dramatic lead has a white comedic sidekick. Now, we've seen plenty of white comedic sidekicks, but often paired with white dramatic leads. It's kind of...
or it's all comedy.
By the point of our lives, it's a true trope to have, like, a dramatic lead and, a comedic sidekick, but it's always, like... Imagine like Rob Schneider in Judge Dredd, the Sylvester Stallone movie. That's always like an example of it not needing to be there. Never saw the Blade movies. Did he have was Patton Oswalt? Wasn't Patton Oswalt in there? Was he the comedic sidekick?
I haven't seen Blade in 20 years, but I loved it. But I don't recall there being a comedic.
But I'm trying to think of this is a true instance here where. That's something that you don't, unless you think about it, is actually truly rare.
Yeah.
This black commanding lead, and then this guy who's just there to be a clown. Mm-hmm. But you'd think in a lot of instances it might be reversed, or or at least Hollywood studios would more accept that dynamic in a reversal role.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's Wallace Ford is he is. He's the little white sidekick,
and he's not. It's not like in. Oh, shoot. What's the one in the woods where he becomes Emperor Jones? It's not like Emperor Jones where he has this white guy who's his friend, but that white guy's also kind of slimy and conniving and doing things. He's not comedy.
Like a consigliere.
Yeah, that's not the same. Like this truly is, he is his sidekick.
The guy is pure goof.
Yes, and he's also very little. Mm-hmm. And there is this one scene, so once they get to the desert and they're going kind of from town to town, like kind of grifting, like they're trying to like make money and then they move on. I don't really know where they're going. I don't know, I know I talk about this a lot, but I love when people do things and show time in ways like they did in the desert here. So they have this shot of their feet. And they're walking, and they've got like boots and pants and like things wrapped around their legs. And then they're walking, and then it switches, and they've got like sandals and shorter pants, and they're walking. And then the next thing they've got like dresses or, and like no shoes. And so it's like, that they've been in the desert now for months at least, right? And they're kind of, as they go, they're kind of integrating themselves more into like the environment, but also they don't have anything. But then we see them come into a town riding on donkeys. And I just have to talk about...
Camels. Oh, no, they were donkeys.
No, they were donkeys because they trade up to camels. But the first time you see them on transportation, it is donkeys. And the donkey is the right size for the sidekick. The poor donkey that had to carry Paul Robeson...
His feet were just about touching the ground.
Deserves a humpy.
He's a big man.
He's a big man. And I truly was like, it felt like if you tried to ride one of our dogs. Like, it was ridiculous. I was like, what is he doing on that donkey?
Well, it's stated that Jericho, before he went to war, studied medicine for like 3 years.
Yes, he wanted to be a physician, and he didn't ever want to fight. That's actually a good moment too, where he's talking to Mac, and he's like, "These hands that I wanted to heal people with, I have been trained to murder, and this is not what I want."
Jericho doesn't know this happened, but because he escaped and he was under Captain Mac's command, they end up because he was friends with him, end up convicting Captain Mac of a conspiracy charge, and he actually gets sent to prison for 5 years.
5 years, yeah, because they think that he helped him escape, and without being able to find Jericho, they can't prove that that's not true.
So Jericho and his sidekick buddy, Mike Clancy, they come upon this lady who is played by, she's credited as Princess Kuka.
Who are you?
A friend.
And who is with you?
Just Alice so far.
We've traveled a long way. May we stop?
You made a smart.
Chuck. Looks like our luck's turned.
You are not all hungry.
There's no doubt at all, madam.
Take care of the camels, boy.
Huh? Uh-oh. I get it. Not bad. Come on, Tootsie.
The character's name was Gara, but this was a real lady who was, I'm not sure if she was Sudanese or Egyptian or both, but she was, not much is known about this lady, but she's credited as Princess Kuka, as opposed that perhaps she was some lineage to some family.
I wondered about that, or if her name was just Princess, because sometimes that happens.
Maybe, but there are like glamour shots that you can find of this actress. I don't know if she was a true actress or some kind of...
They might have just plucked her
or might have just some kind of society lady.
Interesting.
She was essentially like a model for her time and place in the early 20th century.
I mean, she's gorgeous. As soon as Jericho sees her, he's like, "I'm done. This is where I belong."
Well, her little village that she lives in, people need medical assistance, so he provides that with his knowledge, and that ingratiates him into the community, and he becomes like a leader of this community, essentially.
Yeah, and they start kind of a little, they don't have an official hospital, but she kind of becomes his nurse, and everyone comes to see him. And, you know, their leader, he set his leg. That's how he found out. Like, her brother came over and was like, "The leg is broken. We have to find a doctor." And he set the leg, and the leader said to him, "As long as you're here, like, you've healed me, you have a place to stay and food to eat." Like, basically just don't leave. So he ends up marrying the woman. He's there seemingly happy for years and years. And then, and the leader like trusts him so much that they have this meeting, and they always go, all the different tribes or groups of people go to this like salt mine.
Yeah, it's like the big thing here is like these salt.
Yeah, and you know, it's Jericho's idea to bring them all together.
It's what they can trade.
Yeah, they go and get this salt like once a year. They make this trek. It like takes a really long time to get there and a really long time to come back, and they go in like these caravans. But Jericho's idea is like, hey, we always go separately, and then we're always trying to beat each other there, and then also other people are trying to like attack us as we go, so let's all go together and be like strong in number.
There are British people in the country.
When they're like gathered in their gathering place to start their trek, these British dudes pull up in these trucks, and they're like, "Hey, can we follow you and take pictures and video of your salt trek?" They want to make a movie. So they're documentarians who show up. They? Well, I know. They show up. Well, they make a documentary in the movie.
And also are able to go report back all the resources of this particular region to the British government and Crown.
Well, someone got them there.
Honestly, for the long-term sake of this area, Jericho, probably the best movie should have done was to gather up the village to execute all of these British filmmakers.
He should have never agreed to this, because also at this point, unbeknownst to him, Mac has gotten out of prison and has vowed to find him. And he's got like a wife and a kid, and he's wanting to build a hospital, and he's like set up to be the new leader of this group of people. Like, everyone loves him so much. And as soon as these men show up with their cameras, I was like,
Yeah.
It's over. That's fucking it. Don't let them take pictures of you. But he thinks he got off scot-free.
Well,
but
he's a
even
nice
then,
guy.
He escaped from... He should be like, you can never put me on film.
Well, he's a nice guy, so he doesn't do what's good for the country
When he
and executes them all. He actually, they all go and they go to this caravan.
When he smiles, do you just feel safe? 'Cause I do. There's like something about...
I mean, he seems like he's a charismatic guy.
This is what I mean. It feels like comfortable. Like he smiles and you're like, everything's going to be fine. You know? And he has that in this movie, like everyone around him kind of feels that. It's like he smiles and everybody's like, it's fine. Everything's fine. About the Britishman, I wanted to ask you, could you understand anything the Bugman said?
Suppose the trucks will be here when we get back?
We shall have to chance it.
I
I should have had you.
I think he's supposed to not be understood on purpose.
That's what I thought too, but there's like a scientist with them who speaks a lot, but I couldn't understand a word.
There's a guy that is like, even the captions are like belligerent. Yeah, I think he was supposed to be nonsensical.
Yeah.
I think you were supposed to not understand what he was saying.
It was just a bizarre little tact.
I was rewinding his little lines and being like, what the fuck did he say?
Yeah.
And it's like, is this dude so English I don't know what the fuck he's saying?
He's got like some bizarre like regional...
Dudes from way up north. They scout that there's some Moroccan bandits. It's not a very good battle scene.
It's weird. I had to rewind it.
It kind of dragged ass.
Because I got confused about when they came out from under the ground.
It made me wonder, like, when was the first good battle scene ever filmed? It wasn't filmed in this movie.
No, this was not. But one thing they do accomplish is big sweeping desert images.
I love that when he gets to the top of the dune.
That is
and
my
he sings
favorite
the song.
moment.
It's a great moment.
My way to the green pastures, my way leads to big high mountains, lonely road with a heavy load. Brother, I walk in my way. My way is no field of clover. My way is no path of glory. Lonely road with a heavy load. Brother, I walk in my way.
That song, like, I actually watched that twice. Like, that's about when you came home, and so I, like, rewound it, and I rewound too far, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna watch this song again. It's so fucking good. Because he hears this song on the radio, but he doesn't... He goes off alone, and he climbs this top of this dune, and he just...
Belts it.
And it's just him, and he's just feeling, and every one of these movies, this is my second one, but in the last movie, he had that moment where he was like on the chain gang and singing the song about John Henry, and that was the moment. And in this movie, it's on the dune.
So they successfully make their trek to the Salt, and this British documentary team, they go back and they put out a film reel, and that's when everyone sees him on camera that goes to see that movie, and Mac sees that, so he knows he's up.
He's been all around the world trying to find him.
He knows he's up in the northwest of Africa, so he goes there, and he confronts him directly, but Jericho's wife overhears. He explains to him, my reputation is in shambles since you left. They locked me up for 5 years, and I came here to bring you back. But Jericho's got
to clear my name.
But Jericho has a kid now. He's got a whole life now. He's like a leader of people here. And so Jericho is like, I'm real sorry. I didn't imagine that they would blame you for what I did.
Yeah. And he basically says, I'll go back with you. And he's like, you can't.
But Jericho is like, if they find out why you're here, they will attack you.
And his wife found out.
But this is bizarre because Jericho should just be like, he introduces his wife to him.
Yeah.
And then she later like overhears.
He didn't know she overheard. But
all he's got, but doesn't she not hear him be like, hear them making peace with one another.
I think she only heard the part about I'm going to take you away.
So why can't Jericho just be like, hey, everyone calm the fuck down. He's not going to do it. Just seems like this part where it's like he needs to kind of gather people around and be like, look, this guy came here, but he's cool. And he's going to go back. But it becomes this kind of forced dramatic moment.
Once they bang the gong, he's like, you got to get the fuck out of here, bro. They're going to kill you. Like, they're not going to listen to him because they're so incensed at that point.
But they see their leader trying to help him escape. They're trying to.
She also didn't ask him a question.
They want to kill the guy.
Yeah.
Who is coming to kidnap their leader, and they see their leader trying to help him escape, and they're not like, why is he trying to help him escape?
They are blind with rage, Bob.
It's okay.
Rage and protection. Also, they don't want him to leave. They want to kill him because if he leaves, he still knows where he still knows where they are. You know, like they don't want him to ever come back. And Jericho actually is like gonna get in the plane with him at one point, and the guy like stops the engine.
Bye, Jericho. I'm going with you.
What are you not? I got a different slant of things now.
So have I, and I'm going to take what's coming to me.
All right. She's stalled. Will you swing the prop again for me?
That was a good touch,
that
actually.
Moment.
Like, you knew exactly what he was doing.
Yes, and I was so glad that he took off. In that moment when he saw Jericho's kid and his wife, and he saw what he'd made for himself, he remembered that they were friends.
Now
and he realized that none of this was on purpose.
No, the original ending to this was...
Yes.
That they both got in the plane and that it crashed. And then the tribes come up and Jericho dies defending Mac. Which honestly makes less sense because of the reasons I said of like they're so desperate to keep this man from kidnapping their dude and yet they're going to kill their dude. Robeson came in and was like, no, we're doing it like this. The ending we just said earlier is the one that happened.
And I'm glad, because that would have sucked.
That makes a little more sense than, like, his own people are going to kill him.
Because if that was what was going to happen, then that is when he stands on the plane and says, listen, this is what's going on, and this man's going to live here with us now. Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever. But there's still... He can't die defending this man who's been searching for him for 5 years against this place where is now his home. Like, he can't do that.
Getting killed by the people who
idiotic.
Have made them there. Yeah, Robeson was right to change that. It was already kind of weird, the dramatic push in that part. But the ending we got is rewarding.
Yes.
So Robeson, thank goodness Robeson was a little more paranoid from his Sanders of the River experience and made sure that shit was like a little more hopeful at the end.
I liked it.
And that is Jericho from 1937. Again, you can I'll send a link to it. These old movies, you can find them on YouTube. The one I found had Arabic subtitles, but I'll put a link and you can watch it there if you'd like. Or you can also get that handsome. I don't work for Criterion. I don't work for Criterion, but you can get this handsome collection of Paul Robeson's. Also has documentaries and such.
Oh, and we didn't mention that his little friend died.
Oh, that's right.
When they were
Sad
fighting
scene.
the men who were trying to attack them on the salt trek.
I do think Clancy is probably my favorite goofy sidekick character in movies, honestly.
I think this is my favorite one that we've watched of Paul Robeson.
It is, totally.
This is my favorite one. If you're not sure, this is a good one to just watch it. Just check it out. It's really fun.
It's easy to take in, too.
It is. It is.
Next week, our last Paul Robeson feature will be The Proud Valley, which has a lot more of we'll get more into Paul Robeson's labor organization and talk more about like what happened to him during the McCarthy era, which is pretty sad. I mean, Paul Robeson actually was a socialist and went all over the world. And we'll get more into depth on that next week for our last Paul Robeson selection. But let's judge this movie real quick. You give it 1 through 5. I give 1 through 5 combined for best out of 10. What do you give 1937's Jericho, directed by Thornton Freeland?
I want to give it a 4.
Okay. I think it is the highest Robeson that I will go. I'm going to give it a 3.75.
Okay.
And there you go, hitting around the A-, sneaking in for, I think this is our first A Robeson feature, and it joins the ranks of American Gangster, Inside Llewyn Davis, Four Lions, and Nope. And I think it earns this spot. I'm certainly not against like any cultural representation of modern movies.
Yeah.
I kind of wish, go ahead and colorblind cast everyone so we can understand that, our biggest issues are not like this kind of surface identity things,
Yeah.
and that like just changing the color of someone is not necessarily indicative of representing a greater culture of an individual. And also studios seem to be more cynical, but I feel like when you do see black leads in a movie from fucking 1937,
Yeah.
that's not cynical. There's something that just seems to just kind of, it represents something that it's kind of risen above. And Paul Robeson was an exceptional figure of his time that deserves to be more known today.
Yes.
And so I think that's why Jericho kind of stands out as we get deeper into Robeson's talkies era. And I think knowing a little bit of the background and the control he asserted to make sure things went in a certain way, it's kind of this movie represents more of a vision of the artist that we're studying here.
Yeah.
And so yes, the Proud Valley next week. But meanwhile, the heroism continues this week as we pick our Denzel selections. We're slapping our balls against the wall because Wednesday is Tony Scott's Man on Fire. Mm-hmm. So that'll be a fun one to discuss. All right. Until then, what is our sign off lately?
Thoughts and prayers to the haters.